populate.
Well, also happening today, started over the weekend, the African Union Summit, and our foreign editor, Sophie Mukwena, is there. She's joined now by Kusela Digo, who is the presidential spokesperson. Sophie, what's happening today?
Well, we are here in Mauritania, a country situated in the Sahel region. The population here is about 4 million, but where I am currently, it's the capital city, where we expect President Cyril Ramaphosa and Rwandan President Paul Kagame to arrive here, and they will be accompanied by the Mauritanian president. We expect an official function to resume very soon. The road where I'm standing currently, it is going to be named Nelson Mandela Avenue as part of the centenary celebrations for President Nelson Mandela. You are aware that the African Union took a decision to be part of the celebrations. We know that in September at the UN General Assembly, on the sideline of the UN General Assembly, before the start of the UN General Assembly, there's going to be a peace summit with the intention to commemorate the life and time of our former stalwart, our former President Nelson Mandela, the first democratically elected president of South Africa. With me, I have the presidential spokesperson, Kusela Digo, to speak to us about the event today and perhaps towards the end of the day, the wrap of the summit itself. Kusela, let's start with what transpired yesterday at the summit. During the discussions on corruption, tough words from President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Well, indeed, Sophie, tough words that the president put you remember the debate was led by the Nigerian President Buhari, where he is leading the charge on corruption, the fight against corruption in Africa. Now, President Ramaphosa, in speaking about it, shared South Africa's experiences. He spoke about the work that we are doing to clean up our state-owned enterprises. He spoke about the need to ensure that we root out corruption, because the scourge of corruption destroys our people. It takes money from those who need it most. So he's calling on Africans, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector, to work together to ensure that we completely root out corruption in our governments and companies.
Turning to where we are now, the naming of this road, Nelson Mandela Avenue, what does it symbolize?
Nelson Mandela himself, he was a global icon of humanity, of peace and reconciliation, but also of development. You remember that in South Africa, he led the charge for the program of reconstruction and development in South Africa. And we mentioned development because, Sophie, as you can see, it's a brand new road. So when we speak about Nelson Mandela, it's not only about the past. It's how do we take the legacy of him and his generation to ensure that we're able to move on into the future. And we're so happy when we see, streets such as these, brand new, but still, honoring the memory of the work of Nelson Mandela and his generation of leaders. But as I think we mentioned yesterday, that it also crosses another road, which is named after the first democratic president of Mauritania. And that symbolism is not lost to us, bringing together the South African and the Mauritian people.
A good start to Madiba's month, the birthday this month?
Yes, indeed. It's going to be an exciting month. We have been in contact with the Nelson Mandela Foundation just in terms of the programs that they are going to be unveiling. But I think what we're looking, though, is a lasting legacy. When we say be the legacy, emulate Mandela, also taking into account, the call for make every day a Mandela Day. So we must learn from Nelson Mandela, and we must continue as South Africans being that beacon of reconciliation, of peace, of humanity, of non-racialism, and that is what we're looking forward to.
And of course, former President of the US, Barack Obama, delivering that lecture a day before Madiba's Day.
Barack Obama is one of many leaders, many people around the world who themselves believe that, they were shaped and molded by the ideals of Nelson Mandela. So I think when he comes into the country and now himself a retired president, he's able to draw on his experiences on issues of dealing with racism. I mentioned non-racialism as being one of the anchor values that Madiba had. So what are the lessons from there? And I think also together with our president, who would have led the charge for a development of the South African Constitution, who would have been at the forefront, of the negotiations that brought us our democratic transition. It's an exciting time, Sophie, and I think we must remember both Tata Mandela as well as Mama Sisulu with a vision of taking their legacies forward.
Thank you, Kusela. There you have it, Kusela Diko, the presidential spokesperson, speaking to us about the event that's about to get underway. We'll bring you that start of the event as soon as President Cyril Ramaphosa and Rwandan President Paul Kagame, including Mauritanian President, when they are here. Back to you in studio.
Thanks a lot there to Sophie, who is in Nouakchott, in Mauritania, where a road named after former President Nelson Mandela is about to be unveiled.
Yeah, the Nelson Mandela legacy still holds sway in many parts of the world.